Morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to attend our webinar this morning. My name's Claire Edgar. I'm from the Xperience Group. I'm joined today on the call by Chris Carpenter from QGate. The agenda this morning is to talk about how we can help you cleanse your data in preparation for GDPR. This is going to be particularly important now because individuals whose information we hold have the right to know what data we hold and why. They also have the right to withdraw that consent at any time. So if the databases we hold have duplicate records, the managing of that consent it may not be recorded correctly ultimately. Chris is going to be demonstrating a tool called Paribus. This tool will help you to identify and manage the duplicate records within your database. We've been fortunate enough to work with and partner with QGate for many years. They have a wealth of knowledge in this area and some great solutions to help you manage your data more effectively. In terms of time, we are anticipating about 30 minutes or so for the webinar, plus question time at the end. Any questions, please use the chat panel, and we'll probably just manage those at the end. Chris, if I can kind of pass over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Claire. Appreciate that. So today we're going to be looking at GDPR and duplicate data. It is really just a cursory look at what GDPR is, and it's actually how data quality or duplicate data in particular has a role to play in that GDPR compliance. We're assuming here that you have a broad awareness of GDPR. We are not legal experts here, but the main thrust of this webinar is to highlight where we believe that duplicate data has a role to play in your GDPR journey. So as well as looking at the GDPR angle of duplicate data, we'll also be looking at the general operational reasons of how data quality can affect a business. We'll then just be moving on to a demonstration of our two Paribus products. So we have Paribus Discovery and Paribus Interactive, and then we'll just be closing with a summary of the benefits of tackling those data duplication issues. So why has GDPR come about? Well, really it's all about the control of personal data. It's to make sure that it's not being abused. It's also because in 1995, a data protection directive came out around this area, and each of the individual countries across the EU decided to implement their own data protection rules. So GDPR also has another aim, is to both simplify and make sure we have consistent rules across the board across the EU. So if recent cases have highlighted the misuse of personal data really is on the sort of public agenda at the moment, with some with quite far-reaching implications like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, the misuse of personal data to actually rig political elections. So it's quite a hot topic, and it's quite important as to why we're looking at this. So when does it come into effect? Well, the 25th of May. So we haven't got too much longer before that is live. What are the main things that are coming up as part of GDPR? Well, the timelines are now such that there is a deadline to report a data breach within 72 hours. So no longer can an IT company, wait potentially about a year or so before they let people know how they've been affected by a data breach. There's actually a 72-hour window in having to report the data breach to the ICO or the Information Commissioner's Office. Deadline to respond to a subject access request is 30 days. The biggie here obviously is on the fines element, and that has increased significantly. So potentially the fines could be 4% of your turnover, or 20 million euros, whichever is greater. So it does have the potential to be crippling there. However, it is important to note that there is this proportionality element to those fines. So if it was just a single individual that was affected by the breach and not in a significant way, obviously those fines would not be as significant as those affecting a number, thousands of individuals in a large way. There's also the element of having to provide proof as part of GDPR. So everything in terms of your GDPR plan, your policies, your procedures, they all have to be documented, and you have to be able to prove that you are complying to those policies and procedures. You also have to record and justify what your lawful reason for processing actually is. So there are 6 of them. I won't go through all of them, but consent is one. So if the individual has consented for you to hold that personal information, then that is fine. If it's contract related, if it's a legitimate business interest. So there are defined reasons as to that can justify the holding of that personal data. So the ICO really is the point of contact for all GDPR related matters. That's the Information Commissioner's Office, and they have actually provided this 12-step guide to take you through that GDPR journey, really, to give you a steer as to how to manage that. I'm not going to go through all of those in detail here. This is not a GDPR educational session, but what I do want to actually highlight is those 3 areas where if you have duplicate data within your CRM system, where that can have an influence. So the first here is on the individual's rights. So the individual has a right to have their personal data deleted or amended. And obviously, if you have duplicate records in the system for the same person, how do you know that you've deleted all the data that you have on them or you've amended the correct record? Second one of which is a subject access request. So this is where an individual will actually post a question as to what data you actually hold on them. And again, same principle really applies, that if you have information for that person across multiple records, how do you know you're providing all that info correctly? Lastly here, we have the element of consent. So as I pointed out earlier, consent is one of the legal reasons for processing. And the thing is, consent can change over time. So you have to make sure that is accurate. And if somebody withdraws their consent, obviously if you've got multiple records for that person, you can't be sure that your consent recording is accurate. Okay, so there are other general business reasons why duplicate data can be a pain. So if you have inconsistent sort of contact names and account names within your CRM system, there are a myriad of potential problems as a result. So from a sales and a service perspective, you could have that history split across those duplicate records. So if you're talking to a prospect about an opportunity, if you're talking to a customer about a service case that they currently have, then you may not have all the right information to hand, because those cases and opportunities may be split over multiple records. So potentially it doesn't look very, very professional there. There's also the possibility of double counting of things like sales opportunities. So if you have 2 salespeople who are looking at possibly different records for different contacts or different accounts, but they are actually the same person, they may unnecessarily raise additional sales opportunities in the system, and then potentially you're affecting your KPIs there. We won't run through all of these, but the last one really to highlight is the effects on marketing. So if you do have duplicate records in your system, then potentially you could be sending out brochures possibly to the same person 5 times, so you've got the wasted spend there. You may indeed actually be sending out material to individuals about products that they already have, and it's because of those duplicate records in your system not being accurate with your product information that you're mistargeting there. There is also a new element to this as well, and that is that some of the marketing applications that are out there are actually priced on a tiered basis on the volume of contacts that you actually have. So if you can reduce the duplicate contacts there, then you can actually obviously reduce potentially the pricing that you would pay for that marketing application, depending on what you actually go for. So how can we help? Well, we have 2 products on the data deduplication side of things, Paribus Discovery and Paribus Interactive, and I'll be going to give you a demo of both of those in a minute. So Paribus Discovery is what we like to call the cure. So Paribus Discovery will actually clean up your system of duplicates. It really is a tool designed for sort of administrators or a power user, so it's not implemented sort of broad brush across all users. And we do actually have plugins to handle reviews and merges for both Dynamics 365 and Infor CRM. On the Paribus Interactive side of things, this is actually a tool that's embedded within Dynamics, and it has a couple of purposes. Firstly, to try and prevent a user from adding in a duplicate in the system in the first place. And also it's got a very good find capability. So if you needed to find what information you're holding against an individual, it's quite a powerful tool from that perspective. As I intimated earlier, it is actually an end user tool. So it's a plugin, and it's available for Dynamics 365. It is also worthy of noting that we have an alternative tool that's reasonably similar for Infor CRM, that works in that way, and that's called Power Entry as well. But we're not going to be specifically looking at that today. So just before we crack on with the demo, just talk to you a little bit about the technology that underpins both of these Paribus products. So we have a fuzzy logic which searches across accounts, contacts, and leads for a number of things. Now, with the Microsoft Dynamics search capability straight out of the box, that's an exact match capability. So it's got its limitations. With Paribus, you can pick up, as you can see here, phonetically, Cheryl, synonyms. So if you've got different terms for the same individual, William, Bill, Billy, etc. You can see there are sequence variations. So it doesn't matter what order that corporate name is in, we're going to be picking that up. Data segmentation there, if you're separating the corporate name there through spaces, hyphens, dots, etc. Doesn't matter. Not all fuzzy logics are created the same. There are a few data deduplication products out there claiming they have fuzzy logic capability, but often they can't deliver things like sequence variations and abbreviations. So it's not all, they don't all compare like for like. So let's have a look at Paribus Interactive. Okay, so what I'd firstly like to do is to paint a scenario where we have been approached by a chap called Bob Dixon, who's asked us to remove all information that we currently hold on him within our database. So let's look at the standard search feature of Dynamics. So if we type in here, Bob Dixon, and let's have a look at contacts here, like so. So as I intimated earlier, Dynamics is doing an exact match on both the surname and the Christian name. So we've returned a Robert Dixon here purely on the basis of the surname. As you can see here, we've returned a lot of irrelevant results as well. So Bob Black, Bob Plum, Bob Lamb, Bob Leon, Bob Mann, etc. So it has got a limited capability. Let's show you what we can do with Paribus Interactive. So Paribus Interactive works in a couple of ways. The first of which can be a general search across the system. And if you click on the Paribus tile here like so, advanced search, and then we have a few options here: account search, general search, person search. So let's do a general search here, and we'll look for Bob Dixon using Paribus Interactive. And we believe Bob works for a network company here. So let's run that search. And as you can see here, Paribus Interactive has found 13 possible accounts, 3 possible leads, and 4 contacts. So let's have a look at those 4 contacts. As you can see here, that fuzzy logic is really coming into play with the name there. So we've got Bobby Dixon, Robert Dixon, Bob Dixon, Dixon, Robert Dixon. You can see also from the corporation perspective here, network first, first network communications, first alphabetically as well rather than numerically. So you can see how that fuzzy logic's working there. And from a GDPR perspective, you can see how much more powerful that is. I mean, these addresses here potentially could be similar. So we could be looking at the same person potentially across multiple records. So that's a general search across the system. The other way in which we can do a Paribus interactive search is an inline search. So let's do that for leads. So you can actually apply the Paribus interactive search across any form within Dynamics. So it gets packaged with a solutions manager where it can be configured to be applied anywhere in opportunities, cases, etc. So let's see how it works on leads here. So we'll create a new lead here for a chap called, see, Paribus Interactive is kicking in here. So Barry Smith, and he works for a company called JAE. So let's check system here. So we haven't got any Barry Smiths within the system to date because we've got 0 contacts there, but we do, however, have 5 related accounts. So let's have a look at those. So we've got a JAE with spaces, JAE with the full stops there, the JAE Corporation. We've got the full title here rather than the acronym. So Jupiter Astronomy Equipment, Jupiter spelt slightly differently there. So hopefully you can see how this tool can actually be a guide to an individual to make sure that, if they're inputting something in the system, they can make sure they actually, it's a check and balance really to make sure that, they're not creating an account when they don't need to, they're not creating a contact when they don't need to, and they can make sure that the lead is assigned to the appropriate account or the contact if it already exists in your system. I actually use it for lead management on a day-to-day basis personally, and I do find it very useful. So that's our first product, Paribus Interactive. So that's the preventative tool. Now let's have a look at Paribus Discovery. So Paribus Discovery is a standalone piece of software really aimed at the sort of administrator power user. And let's have a look at the kind of results that we can return here. So let's have a look at the matches here that we've got for this account match session. So you can see here on the left-hand side, we have a series of what we would call match groups. So this is the group of matches by corporation, like so. And then on the right-hand side here, we have what we would call match group members. So they are the individual matches pertaining to that group. And the way we'd actually conduct the review is you use the information here within these boxes, like so, to be able to determine which you want to be the primary record. As you may note here, the number 1 here actually means that this is the actual primary record. So the primary record is the record that all other sort of secondary and tertiary records would merge into. And you can switch that primary like so rather easily if you so wish. There are a couple of other things to note about how it actually works from a merging perspective. So it is honoring the parent-child relationship that you may have within your CRM system. So when you're doing that merge, that is all honored throughout that merging process. There's also the point of we try to make the record as rich as possible as well. So if you take, for example, here we've got on the left-hand side, we've got the primary record. You see we haven't got the website populated here. If we have had the website populated on the secondary record, we would have pulled in that website to the surviving member. So we do try and make that merging process as rich as possible. So let's have a look at the few of the others here that we have showing off that fuzzy logic. So we've got advanced mech, sort of spelt differently there. We've got JAE again, Jupiter Astronomy Equipment, like so. And the eagle-eyed of you there might notice that we've got actually 2 separate match groups here, the JAE and the Jupiter Astronomy Equipment. And that's actually because the addresses are different between these 2 match groups. So it's intelligent enough to do a pairing like so, and also separate them out because of the criteria that's down here in the on the address side of things as well. So it's quite powerful. Picking up things here like synonyms, eighth, phonetically, ray of Bromley, etc. So I think you get the drift of how that works. And in terms of the review itself, you simply just include or exclude match groups like so, and you can include or exclude certain members from that merge process as well. So that's how we would do an account search, an account match rather. And there is actually a logical approach as to how you would approach a clear up. So you would look to actually do it in a hierarchical fashion. So you make sure that on the account side of things that you've cleaned those up first. And then it would make sense after you've done the accounts to switch to the contacts on an exact match of the ID of the account, like so. So here we have a contact match here, and we've got a few examples. We've got Annabelle, sort of spelt differently, like so. We have Bob Brumfield, Robert Brumfield, etc. Phonetically, Tracy, etc. So that's how you would manage the contact side of things. So just to briefly touch on here, this is what we would call the match sessions. So this is where you set the criteria for those, and it's very easy to change this criteria yourself to whatever you want here. So you can do a wider or a narrower search and include any condition that you want that's within the database there. So it doesn't have to be postcode, could be web address, etc. Whatever you see fit that you actually want to search on. So that's the first part of the cleanup process. So that's the review. The second part actually is the merge. So the way you'd actually do that is you go to Tools, Plugins, And then we have different plugins here, both for Microsoft Dynamics and also for Infor CRM as well. And you simply just connect to your CRM database. We won't do that now, but a wizard would then start, and it's a very simple step-by-step process actually to manage that merge. It's important to note that during that merge process, you do actually have the ability to switch between both deactivate and delete. So if you actually don't want to delete those previous records, but just want to put them in a deactivated status, you do have that. You do have that option as well. So that's everything from a demo perspective here. So we're just going to close up here with just a quick summary of the benefits really of tackling that duplicate data. So as I intimated earlier, from a customer service and a sales perspective, no longer have you got that information split across multiple records. So it's a better experience for both the customer and the user as well. You know, you're making sure that you've got the right name with the right history in front of you. From a marketing point of view, it's very useful in terms of making sure that your campaigns are more accurate and you're not unnecessarily spending money on campaigns by sending duplicate material out to the same person a number of times. You have the possibility here, particularly if you're looking for a marketing app outside of Dynamics, which is based on the volume of contacts. So there is an element there. And lastly, from a management point of view, obviously it will make your KPIs more accurate if there is no double counting as a result of there being duplicate accounts or duplicate contacts in your system. And finally, you know, the main thrust of why we're here today, getting a grip on data quality and data duplication really does attribute to GDPR compliance. It's only one element, obviously, in a much broader topic, but it can help you most accurately handling those delete requests, those amend requests, those subject access requests, and managing that audit trail for consent as well. So that's pretty much it for today. We do have more information available on our Paribus cloud website here. You can get various information regarding to trials and pricing, etc. But I would ask if you are at all interested in either of the Paribus products, if you could first speak to your Xperience Group account manager, and we'll sort of take it from there. Just a final point, there is a blog as well on our website that sort of covers a few bits and pieces of what we've been talking about today in terms of duplicate records and their effect on GDPR.